This is definitely the most well-designed space that I've done. I'm incredibly proud of it. I can't wait to share it with you. So much time and love has gone into this space. I've done several DIYs, which I'm going to share with you in today's video, but the space that we are doing is Jameson's rooms. Just to take it back really quickly so that you know where we started. Back in 2020 when we moved in, it was one of the first rooms we worked on. We pulled the carpet out. We painted the entire space, including the black focal wall that we added the picture frame molding on and the chair rail. And then we also added crown molding. Now, the floors do need refinishing. We did consider doing that at this time, but knowing that the transition from crib to big boy bed was already going to be potentially disruptive to his sleep and just like his normal routine, we didn't want him to have to sleep in a different room for several days as we refinish the floors prior to that. So it's something that we will probably revisit as he gets a bit older, and the ceilings are also textured. I've mentioned before, we've got a lot of these throughout the house. We don't love them. We live with them for now. It's not really that big of a deal to us. At some point, we'd like to hire out to get those smoothed out. But now that you have an idea of where we started, where we're going, let's get started on these DIYs. I found this gorgeous old bed frame on Facebook Marketplace for $125, which is just such a good price. If I were to buy something new, it would not be this good of quality, wouldn't be near as gorgeous, and I would have definitely spent more. So I knew it was actually going to be perfect for that like moody old world feel in his room, but I got it about a year ago. So I had it in storage, pulled it out and gave it a good cleaning with just some soapy water, and then went in with some restor-a-finish and some steel wool pads. So ultra fine. So it's a very specific grade of steel wool that you have to get so that you don't, damage the furniture in the process. But you want to go along with the wood grain, and it's just amazing. Every time I use this product, I am just stunned at how amazingly it works. They have it in different colors, so you get the closest one to your furniture piece. I actually just used dark walnut because it's the one I had on hand. I knew it being a darker tone, it would probably be fine, but look at that before and after. It's just like blows my mind every time. So something that I kind of took away from this after doing it, because I have used this product before, but not with the steel wool. This was my first time doing it that way. You don't need to use the steel wool on the entire piece like I did. You could definitely just use it in the areas that are a bit rough and really need, an extra bit of grit to kind of work that stain into it. So I know for sure they recommend it for like water spots, like if you've got water rings, that kind of stuff. But I could have just used a regular pad on a lot of the bed frame. There were some areas where I could tell I maybe rubbed a little bit hard and rubbed a little bit of the natural like finish off of it. So be aware of that. I am not a professional at all. I am just somebody who really loves old pieces, and I don't want them to end up in landfills, and I want to reuse them, and I want to breathe new life into them. So I continue to find myself doing these like little furniture makeovers, and it's not my favorite process to like redo furniture, but here I am. So sharing it with you and just like the things I'm learning along the way. I have all of the products that I used for this linked down below in the description box, so you can check that out if you're interested in purchasing any of these products. The next thing I used was their feed-in wax, which is what they recommend to finish your project with. Now, this is my first time using it, and it looked so pretty with that high shine, but you do wipe a lot of that excess wax off, and I will say at certain angles, I can still see where the original finish has worn off, and I almost wonder if maybe instead of wax, I should have done a polyacrylic or something, but again, I hadn't used it before, so I really didn't know what to expect. I still think it looks night and day, absolutely beautiful, and I'm really happy with the way that this turned out. So up next, we're going to do some wall art for his room. So above the bed on his black focal wall, which I know his bed's gonna look so gorgeous up against, I wanted to do something that was fairly large to go above and kind of be like the feature above it. So I decided to go with a map because that feels very old world. So I went on to Etsy and searched for maps of the 100-acre wood. I thought that would be a really sweet way to like incorporate a map, but it still feels very like sweet and childlike. So this is Christopher Robin's map that he drew of the 100-acre wood. So it's very cute. What I want to do is I want to create a frame for it since it is like just a custom size that I ordered. So this is leftover trim from our TV frame project that we did. I knew it was going to be perfect, not only because I had a good amount of it already, but because it's got this little lip in here. So the poster will fit inside of that perfectly. And then I'm going to create a backing for this so that since this is like pretty thin paper, I'm going to create a backing using just some cardboard that I got from an Impic shipment that I just saved because I knew I was going to need it for a project like this. So that's the plan. I am going to stain and rub and buff this like I did with the frame in the living room. So we're going to go ahead and make this frame now and see how it turns out. What we have found to be best when creating these frames is to measure one of the sides and then measure the top or the bottom and go ahead and get those pieces cut. Once you have both of those pieces cut, you can then use them as guides to mark and cut your next two pieces. That way you know they're going to be the exact same size. That's much easier than trying to like measure and make sure that both of your pieces are exactly the same just based off of your measurements, because you could miss it by a little bit and then the whole thing doesn't fit together properly. So once you have them all cut, lay them out, make sure they fit together and the artwork fits in it, and then go ahead and glue. Now, I kept struggling with our 90-degree clamp and thinking it was because of the beveling on the frame, but really you need to just set all four corners in the clamps before tightening them, add the glue, and tighten them as you go. So they all have to be level, which should have been obvious, but it really took me a second. We ended up gluing them together, stapling, and I actually had to like pull a couple apart and reinforce them, and I was able to get them in the clamps and secure it, and everything was all good. But you know, I had to circle back to that. Once I had all of it together, I went ahead and used a little bit of wood filler on the corners and stained it. After staining it, I waited about a day and then I applied the rub and buff to give it that nice like vintage gilded frame finish. The last step in this DIY is to create a backing for the poster. Now, I made a couple of mistakes here and I wanted to leave it in because rarely do my DIYs go perfectly the first time. And if you're going to attempt this, these are a couple of things to not do. So the first thing is I didn't realize when I planned to use this particular piece of cardboard that it had a bend in it that would run through the center of the poster. I used some little metal pieces to kind of reinforce everything and tried to place them strategically so that it wouldn't affect the way the poster sat in there, but I did notice a couple weeks later when I went to go hang it up that there were ripples in it, and I couldn't have that. So luckily I had this foam board, like project board on hand that I was going to use for a different project, and the poster fit in the center of it almost perfectly. So I cut that to size, and then I used a product called Easy Tack. This is a spray adhesive that I used to use back in my sign making stenciling days. And what's really nice about it is it's repositionable. So you have about 10 minutes to move things around without it like drying on you. So it's really easy to work with, really easy to just get it nice and smooth. My last mistake that I made was I only let it sit for about 45 minutes to an hour before I hung it up. And the next day I saw a small ripple in it. So I think I saw to wait 2 to 3 hours. I would probably just wait an entire day before you hang it and let gravity have its way with it. But really, I'm happy with the way that this turned out. So we went garage sailing and I was looking for some last minute things that I would need for Jamison's room, one of those things being a lamp. This was the only thing that I walked away with, but if you remember from the mood board, I shared this lamp, which was way out of the budget, but I knew I wanted to find something similar to it. And I feel like it's pretty similar. They have the same vibe. The only thing that I don't like about this one is this like shiny gold. I want to make it look like more of an aged brass like the other one. So I'm just going to kind of play around. I don't know what's going to work best. I have some rub and buff and I have some antiquing wax. So we're just going to kind of play around with it a little bit and see what happens. I got this for $6. So I don't feel like there's a lot of pressure with me potentially messing it up. The other thing I have to figure out is why it won't stand up straight. I've tried to tighten it and that didn't seem to help. So I have to figure out how to get this thing to sit up straight, but it works. I love the little key knob here. I think it's gonna be perfect for his dresser. And we just need to DIY it a little bit. So that's what we're gonna do now. When applying Rub and Buff to a really smooth, shiny surface like this, I have found that it's best to stipple it on. I'm using an old makeup brush. And I also like to use a little bit of extra product to kind of pat additional product on there to give it a little bit of texture. I think that really adds some character to it. After I had that applied to the entire thing, I went in a couple days later with some dark antiquing wax and again, just kind of stippled that on. I did a couple of layers of this and I also used different motions. So I did some patting, I did some buffing. You just want to be really careful because you can accidentally pull away some of that Rub and Buff product. So I did a couple of layers and just kind of did different techniques to apply this on there, but it really helped to give it that nice aged look. And I'm really happy with this little DIY and this find. I feel like I definitely got the look for less. So the first thing that I need to do to get this wall prepped is we had a baby monitor up here with conduit and the adhesive was really strong. When we pulled it down, it like literally ripped off some of the paint and even some of the like drywall paper underneath. So that's unfortunate. I was wanting to paint anyway. I'm not going to repaint the actual trim pieces. They are done in a satin finish, which is a lot easier to clean off. But the actual wall, I really want to do in more of a matte finish. So I went and got the same color in matte because of the imperfections on this wall. For whatever reason, this type of drywall that was installed in this room shows literally everything. So I'm going to try to even out the surface in the spots that it needs it, fill, do whatever I need to do. I think though that the matte paint is going to really help. And some of the adhesive is still on there. You can see down here. So I'm going to get my blow dryer, a scraper. I'm going to try to get that off. I need to try to get those little spots as smooth and blended as possible before painting. And hopefully once I get to the painting part, this goes fairly quickly. So back when we did this wall 3 years ago, this was our first attempt at picture frame molding, which you now see all throughout our house. We've done many walls since, but this is the one that we kind of learned on and made mistakes on. At that time, there just really weren't a lot of tutorials. I think I found like one tutorial that we were referencing a lot. There weren't a lot of pictures of it. It just wasn't on trend and all over Pinterest and Instagram like it is now. And so we learned some things on this. I also think dark paint, you have to be really intentional with your roller lines, making sure they're nice and straight because it's just much more obvious if things are kind of in a different texture or going a different direction. I even would go back in after doing the paintbrush with a little roller just to give it that same consistent texture all over. So I think it was totally worth going back in with the matte paint and redoing this. I can definitely tell that it concealed a lot of the imperfections that have been driving me crazy for 3 years. So this is the same rug that he had previously, but in a bigger size. A couple months ago, I went on and ordered another one because I loved it and I knew he was just gonna need something a bit bigger to go underneath his bed, and I was happy to do that because I used his in a different area of the house. So I love this rug. It's super affordable. It's got a really nice pile to it. I will have the link for it below. And the next thing that we did was we wanted to make this bed more of like a platform bed. So we ordered this metal support from Amazon, and we're actually going to be adding some wooden supports in between these metal bars as well for some added support. But the reason we did this was because it keeps it nice and low to the ground for him, so it's very toddler friendly. And then eventually when he gets bigger, we can get a box spring and put it in there. But what I did was order a 12-inch mattress so that it was kind of a thicker sized mattress, so it would sit really nicely in that bed frame for him. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I know that those of you who stay through the entire videos are the ones that are leaving the kind words and the support in the comments, and I just want to tell you that I appreciate you. I know that some of you have reached out to me on other platforms and told me that you missed me here. I have not been on here for several weeks, partially due to just like doing these DIYs. They were also really therapeutic through some tough grief days, my mom's birthday, Mother's Day. We also lost our 16-year-old Pomeranian that I've had with me literally half of my life. So over these past several weeks, this has been really therapeutic for me to just have these projects to kind of not only like distract myself, but I also feel I can be really reflective and, you know, just kind of like put myself and my time into something creatively. And that's very therapeutic for me. So very thankful for this space. It's very special to me. Can't wait to share it with you. Don't miss the next video. It's going to be the reveal. It's going to be out very soon. It's already mostly done. I'm working on one little DIY that I'm finishing up so that I can show you the finished product. So I'll see you very soon. Bye.